Let's now talk Fortnite, shall we? It's the newest video game craze, spreading fast among kids, college kids, even celebrities.
Kids are nuts for this Fortnite.
Fortnite has taken over the gaming world, becoming the most streamed game on Twitch ever. But brands are left out of the action, either tweeting from the sidelines or paying big bucks for in-game sponsorships. So when Fortnite announced a new event called Food Fight between Team Pizza and Team Burger, Wendy's saw an organic weigh-in. We found out Team Burger stored their beef in freezers. And Wendy's doesn't do frozen beef. So we got on Twitch, chose a character with red hair and pigtails, dropped into the game, and instead of killing other players, we started destroying burger freezers. Again and again and again, for 9 hours straight. We also declared our mission on Twitter, sending hundreds of thousands of gamers to Twitch to watch us play. And soon other players stopped killing each other and started killing burger freezers with us.
Hey, Wendy's, dude, let's go!
Top Twitch streamers took notice.
I saw a Wendy's stream over here, dude.
Oh, you smacking the burgers, freezers?
This shit's lit. This kind of stuff keeps the game fresh.
Thank you so much for coming to the stream, Wendy's.
News outlets were talking about it. Even Twitch posted a highlight reel of Wendy's best freezer kills. Then, our own competitors showed us some respect. But most importantly, the game developers removed the freezers from every burger restaurant, meaning Wendy's had rid Fortnite of frozen beef forever.
So welcome to our discussion today with Matt Keck and Jeremy Klein. For those who don't know me, I'm Jorge Thauby, the ECD of Singapore. And I'm so excited to welcome our guests, Matt and Jeremy, today. They're some of the creative genius behind Keeping Fortnite Fresh. For those who are unfamiliar to this campaign, let me just give you a short list of all the awards that this campaign have won last year. Grand Prix, 2 golds, 4 silver, 1 bronze at Cannes. Grand Prix, 2 gold, 1 silver, 1 bronze at London. Grand Prix and category winner at the Drum Social Buzz. Named by Contagious Magazine as one of the top 5 brand story of the year. 2 golds and 2 silvers at the Clio, and the list goes on and on and on and on. So Matt and Jeremy, welcome to Geometry Creative Weeks. Thanks a lot for joining us today. And yeah, thanks a lot for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
You know, creativity drives business and culture in ways that change the world. And I do think that this piece of work did that. So in order to understand, you know, how you got at this iconic piece of work, can you talk us through what the original brief was?
Yeah, Matt, I think I can maybe start it and then.
For sure.
So I think for us on this one, it's actually the culmination of quite a few years worth of work. And I think in our experience, we've often found, and this is something that, you know, our head strategist preaches as well, but the best strategists are simplifiers. And so, you know, quite a few years ago now, really the brief was, you know, the original brief was kind of like to get people to fall in love with Wendy's again. You know, they're a restaurant brand that's been around in the US for coming up on 51 years now, just the 50th last year. And, you know, it kind of became one of those things where, you know, they've been serving fresh beef since day one, but, you know, when you say something over and over again, it kind of loses meaning or people, you know, stop listening. So for us, our you know, sometime in the company history, they kind of stopped talking about fresh, never frozen beef. And we really discovered, you know, a couple of years ago that it's actually quite a powerful motivator for consumers. And really our kind of brief was just tell people that Wendy's has fresh, never frozen beef in unique and creative ways that get them, you know, get Wendy's to kind of be top of mind. Obviously, we're not the category leader, as most brands are, so that's nothing new. But really, we thought if we can remind people of this quality thing, then that product level differentiator can then kind of come up to the brand level and get people to really fall in love with Wendy's again. But I think to your question, I think it's actually the original brief was, I don't know, maybe perhaps deceptively simple, of just find unique and interesting ways to remind people that Wendy's only serves fresh, never frozen beef.
And I honestly would add on to that and say that I think it's important for most brands to have something that simple that's just a standing brief, where it's like, what is the why behind your brand? What is the thing that your brand specifically stands for that you want to get out there? And if that message is just a standing brief in all your work, it gives you the opportunity to do new and exciting things with that message.
That's interesting, no? Because I know that some creatives like to have, like, how they call it, like open brief, like you have one main task, but no one is going to tell you choose this channel or use this sort of approach. It's just, we need you to say something simple, go and find a way to say it. But some other creatives feel like overwhelmed with that because they need that sort of direction. So how do you guys feel like about that different approaches? No? Because in this case, as you're saying now, is that just go and find something to say about Wendy, which is like, in particular, this new.
Yeah, I think we really do have both styles of briefs on our team, and we have a pretty large creative team. And I think for the most part, when a new sandwich or something is going to come out, there's going to be a lot more guardrails of what do we want to say about this specific thing. And I think that helps in a lot of ways. You're right, because if you just have an open brief, you just kind of sit there open, like, okay, what do I do with this? But we have that available to fall back on for great ideas that really resonate with the brand. But we also have plenty of briefs that will give you the guardrails too. So I think it helps to be able to work in both ways. I think you definitely need direct briefs telling you what your work is supposed to say. But I think having a more open brief that you can then figure out ways to make the work fit into that open brief world is also a nice thing to have for when you come up with creative ideas that weren't necessarily sparked by a specific brief.
I think
that's sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I was
sorry,
just going to just one quick add to that. Kudos to our client, and as well as our team for because there's a million RTBs we could have focused on. Hot and juicy and kind of just like stays warm. Full quarter pound, like,
made to order.
Like, yeah, there's just a bunch of RTBs, but we really decided to, focus on the singular one. And I think another advantage that we've had with Wendy's is, our more fast and quick approach with social and specifically, traditional social media channels, specifically Twitter. But for us in this specific instance as well, really identifying that for us, gaming is the next social platform. It already is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But, it doesn't have to fit in that box of what we define social as.
That's interesting, no? And which takes me to the next question. I was thinking, like before, I need to ask the guys this question. Because we recently, like last year in my team in Singapore, we work with one of our brands is part of the government, and what they do is to recruit preschool teachers, right? Because there's no so many preschool teachers in Singapore, and the profession is considered, like a second sort of profession. So one of my creatives, Julian, one day he came to us and he said, like, you know what, artificial intelligence is gonna replace a lot of jobs in the world. But guess what, they're not gonna, the artificial intelligence is not gonna replace teachers because machines cannot, like interact. And immediately when he said that, when you have that feeling of like, whoa, there's something super cool here because we are approaching the problem in a different way. Why I'm talking about this is because I have the feeling that you guys also have the similar, in a different way, obviously, but similar sort of way of connecting things that it was there. But I guess like my question is, how did you guys notice that that sort of gimmick in the game was who came with that? That's my question. Sorry.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Jeremy and myself actually, we host a weekly meeting with our team where we track a lot of trends on the internet or really just in culture in general. We track what the rest of the industry is doing, and then we try to let the room look at things with a different lens. And so really it came out of Fortnite itself just having Food Fight be what was going on, and it was Team Pizza and Team Burgers. And so we kind of brought it up. A lot of other brands had already like hopped on with a tweet, and they were talking about what side they were going to join. And really we wanted to look at it, and it's like, okay, sure, we could just write a tweet today and that'd be fine. That's kind of what we're known for. We can do that, no big deal. Or what's another way we can go into it? So a group of us sat around after the meeting, and we really just kind of beat it up with the idea of, you know what, our competitors have already joined Team Burger, and we're always very like competitive, very anti being on the same team as our competitors. So why are we not on this team? And so right there, one of our art directors, I believe, and Jeremy both just hopped into Fortnite and just went to look at the Der Burger, jumped in there and were like, they have freezers. That's why we can't be Team Burger. And so as a hamburger restaurant, we're like, well, we don't do frozen beef. That's absolutely not our thing. So we're even going to side with pizza over frozen beef. We're Team Pizza, and we're going to prove it by going in and we're going to break the freezers in the Der Burger over. And that's just how it happened. It really just kind of was like, you know what? We know we're against frozen beef. So if they have frozen beef, well, we need to be against that. And that was just the level of decision making.
And I think to take that up a level, I think for us, we really think of non-traditional kind of ideas kind of require non-traditional thinking. So candidly, Matt and I, neither of us went to ad school or anything like that. And we really kind of been thinking a lot about like, who makes the work shapes the work. And one of the things that we do in this meeting that Matt mentioned that we hold weekly, if you think about it, our entire industry, we're totally contingent on great ideas. Clients pay us for our thinking. We're not really like making anything, it's not like I'm on like an assembly line or anything. And so it's like great ideas are so critical to the future of our careers, in our business and our industry. But, for us, we really kind of looked at it. It was like, how many of us are actually taking time to set aside to just think about these ideas? And for us, like right now, it's only like a half-hour meeting a week. And then it goes on to other things, but it's like we at least have this 30 minutes dedicated week. It's never handled over email or anything, but it's really reserved for us to really look at things. And again, the whole team attends, because for us, we're thinking of, what's the cost of someone not bringing their best idea because they don't have an outlet or an avenue to share that with. And if we can kind of loosen this filter that keeps us from sharing ideas, like if you think you have to wait until it's fully formed before introducing it and you can only pitch it to this creative director but not this, we might miss that spark that lights someone else's fire. And I really think that's what was so successful with Fortnite, was there was some of us who saw it and were like, yeah, we could do a tweet, but we could also take it a totally different direction. And then the end result, excuse me, as you've seen, is what happened.
So to that in that moment, no, when you guys realize that, okay, we're gonna be Team Pizza and we're gonna go and smash, freezers, that's something that you have to like execute quite fast, right? And it's not an idea that you can, okay, let's wait until the next meeting with the client and let's prepare a deck. How do you guys like, after that you have this moment of, okay, we're gonna do this. How did you guys like move? What was your next move? Like, how do you guys approach the client and you bring this idea to someone who is sitting probably in a marketing office and I would like to understand that as well.
Absolutely. I would say for us, we're incredibly fortunate to work with a team that fires on all cylinders in every department. And we're fortunate enough to have a client that if they don't understand us, they at least trust us, at least to a pretty good degree. So in that original group, there was myself, Jeremy, we had an art director, Connor Clark, and a writer, Eamon Conway, and then a creative director, McKay Hathaway. So we had pretty much everyone you could possibly need to like form an idea into a little ball. And since our creative director was already involved, he was giving us the direction of how to make our presentation. We presented before the end of the day, that first day, to clients, I believe, to our first level of clients. We had gotten it approved, I think, within 3 days, but it was Thanksgiving break here in the States. So we had like a gap of like 3 or 4 days off, and then we came back, and then we did it right there. So it was around a week's time of creating it. Since we had everyone involved from the get-go, it was really quick and easy. We divided up what we needed to do. Okay, you work on this slide, you work on the upfront, you polish it up, make it look nice. And then I think it also helps to sell into clients when the idea costs them no money. So this idea, if it gets no attention and wins no awards, okay, they spent no dollars. But the fact that they spent no dollars and then it had this kind of ROI is great. You know, we have a lot of fun ideas that we work on that don't get as big as this did or get as much attention as this did, because we have clients that trust us to like try things out. And if we can try it for free, I mean, there was no reason for them to not just go, okay, we understand that Fortnite's cool. We understand that you're breaking freezers in a cheeseburger restaurant. We understand that it costs us, I think by the end it was like $40 because we had to buy a pass so that we could get the skin with the red pigtails. So for $40, we just ran this thing. And it's really a no-risk situation if you can come up with an idea like this that at the end of the day, I mean, it costs us no money to fire up a PlayStation and go live.
Great. When you were talking, I was also, you know, like in my head thinking that you're very lucky as well that you know, like have a team and a client that is very supportive of, you know, like, okay, let's try new things. You know, sometimes, you know, we see that some people feel a little bit fussy or stressed, you know, because can we do this? It is legal. It is not legal. Maybe we need to consult, you know, with the lawyers and these sort of ideas. They need the speed of executing things, because actually, if you lose that window, then you're gone, right?
Absolutely. And I think a hidden component to that on our team too is our client engagement team is top notch, because they understand the clients to a degree that obviously the creatives will never completely understand the clients, but they also understand our creative to a degree to where they're almost like a babblefish, right? They're almost like translating everything we say to the clients and everything the clients say to us. And they're just like this great connective piece to where we can show them something and they can be like, okay, not this, add this, polish this, then we'll talk to clients. And so I think having that component really makes those steps, I mean, it's essential to the trust that we have between client and team, for sure.
I think that's also something, you know, Jorge, you mentioned it being so quick. And I think that's something that's also super important to the QSR industry. I mean, it's an industry based on like speed and convenience, but you know, I think something, I don't remember the exact study, but there's like 220 mealtime or like food decisions per day, you know, and when there's so many fast food restaurants and everything, it's like speed, you know, not only from like an actual like business model, but even like, you know, marketing and consumer angle is imperative, you know, to the business. And I think that's something that you see across the board with QSR is that speed. You know, and for us, we kind of take to heart, there's this Louis Pasteur quote about like, what is it? Chance favors the prepared mind, you know, and it's like, I think there's a lot of people who just say Wendy's has gotten lucky over the course of the years. And I think that might be warranted, but for us, luck is about being ready. It's not just something that we happen to fall into. You know, we open ourselves up to that, and it takes alertness, and alertness is just kind of noticing something different or interesting that you could otherwise overlook. And I think that's where we really landed with this food fight thing as well, just seeing that on social and really being able to take that and form it into something that just is beyond a tweet.
So I guess like, you know, like we creatives are, and it might sound like as a cliche, no, but we're always connected to certain brands in our heads, and we are always like seeing things and collecting things in our mind, and we speak to our copywriters or art directors, and obviously for anyone who is outside this industry, they might think that we are crazy because we are talking nonsense things all the time. I guess my question is like, how do you guys, like, what is that line that you guys, like put between your work and also, like your life? Because, like connecting speed and connecting all of this, where it might be also super tiring, no?
Yes,
That is the
very
question.
tiring. I would say that I wish I could give you a good answer to how I keep a defined line between my life and my work, because right now that line got drawn in the sand and there's been people kicking dust all over it, and there's not really a clear line of where it starts and ends. But I think that inherently is part of the creative process though, right? Like, yes, I've separated that when I'm off work, I'm going to go home and I'm going to watch this on Netflix, but there's no turning off the switch in your brain when you're watching this thing on Netflix when someone says something and it kind of changes your whole perception of something else. And then that switch is already off. So when you can then connect that back to your work, you just do, because, well, it's there, it's happening. And so I think to some level, what I try to do to keep the line is I don't talk as much about work when I'm not at work. Let's put it that way. Like, I try not to talk about work with friends that aren't work friends, or with family. I talk to it at such a surface level that I can be like, oh yeah, it's cool, I got to do this, I worked with this, I got to go here, it was fun. But I try not to get nitty gritty even with my wife for the most part. Sometimes I will, because she has great ideas too, but I try to just, when I have those ideas, I just try to draw a circle around it, make a little bubble, store it for later, and then once it's work time, open all that back up for sure.
Yeah. What about you, Jeremy?
To me, I agree with Matt. And I think I often think creativity or inspiration is much more discipline than it is talent. I think ideas are waiting to come out. And they will come to whomever is disciplined enough to put in the work, because again, any other brand could have done this. I don't think there's anything super special about it, but it's just having the discipline to put in the time, even when you don't feel like it. But again, I think it can also be in various capacities as well. It can be something like 15 minutes after a meeting, or it can be working on a novel or something. I think creativity requires discipline.
That's so true. No, I was watching the other day a video from one of my favorite musicians, and he was talking about his approach to compose music. And you always have the idea that musicians, like the majority of them get an inspiration and they sit in front of the piano and then they compose, like, okay, done. But I was quite surprised that because he was talking about that he has this routine of sitting in front of the keyboard and press record and record for 2 or 3 hours, whatever is coming to him, because he's interacting with different machines and here and there. And he was saying that some days I will only save 2 seconds of the 3 hours record. But those 2 seconds will be probably the trigger in another day of something that I create in that moment. And we as a creatives, we forget about that, like the discipline of sitting and brainstorming and, like pushing and pushing and pushing. We are, as you know, like we are in a quest of in geometry finding iconic ideas, and certainly, like this idea, I'm a big fan of your idea. And when Michelle told me that, we can talk to them, I was like, yes, please, can I talk to them? And the list of awards is incredible. But as a creative, I also want to ask you guys. I know that the Grand Prix in Kansas is like, but there's any of the other awards that you guys won with this idea that you guys feel like, like this is my personal win?
I know Jeremy has one for sure, so I'll make mine real quick. When I first started in advertising, it would have been 7 years ago, and I've spent all of that time on the Wendy's account. And when I first started, I knew nothing about advertising awards. I wasn't in the industry. My boss at the time wanted to win a gold pencil. That's all he wanted. He wanted to win a gold pencil. So the first time I won one of those, it was fun to be able to kind of give him a little ribbing message of like, hey, I remember you talking about how you always wanted to win one of these. So for me, that was the other award that and they're just fun to hold. The pencils just have a nice weight to them.
Yeah, and it's actually super cool, right?
Yeah, it is.
I think for me, actually, you know, with this work or any past Wendy's work, really, I think I actually get most excited about the consumer response and like how real people respond to it. Because for me, it's one thing if the industry sees it and they talk about it, but was it bigger than that? And so for us with this Fortnite activation, you know, we had professional streamers coming, you know, like professional gamers coming to our stream, and we were playing with, you know, one with quite, you know, I think like 1.5 million or something like that, you know, followers. And then even a couple other streamers were hopping in our stream and interacting with us. And then, you know, when Twitch then tweeted this like highlight reel of it, to me, that's really the truest validation of our work, is that the end consumer actually cares. You know, it's not just like there's value to it.
We went off of like they gave us like the seal of approval.
Yeah, and I think it's that authenticity, I think, that matters, because I really think we always try in kind of more of these social activations as well, is like to provide value that's not just advertising and interrupting their experience, but it's like, how can we add it? You know, and again, there wasn't any paid or anything, so people were all there on their own volition. So of course, industry awards are great. Recently, our finalists for the Effie Awards with this activation as well, which are all great. But again, I think it's really that kind of end consumer validation that to me matters the most.
That's fantastic, you know, like, and I forgot to tell you why I'm so such a big fan of this idea is because when I saw it the first time, it really hit me in a way that, you know, like, and this is my personal take, is I think that in Singapore, you know, like we have been talking a lot about e-commerce, and for me, you know, like trying to define e-commerce in a different way, you know, not that the standard of what everyone have in their mind. When you say e-commerce, immediately you see banners and you see, and when you see ideas like the ideas like this idea, for me it was like, this e-commerce, you know, this is another way of doing e-commerce, and it's so fresh, you know. So thanks a lot, you know, guys, for having this conversation. I don't know if you want me to ask you something else, or it is something that you guys want to talk about it in particular, or you know, you want to highlight.
Yeah, I have one. I just was going to say one thing. I think you know, a quote coming out of Cannes last year from PJ Pereira, you know, mentioning like perhaps in 5-10 years we'll point back and say it started here. You know, I think some very cool and unique things are happening in, like, it's like a crossover between social and gaming, and you know, Fortnite has had multiple in-game events. They've had concerts. Just this past week, you know, they had another in-game event that actually capped out their servers. They told people to get there 30 minutes in advance, like, because if you're playing, you basically tune into this cinematic. But if it capped out in minutes, and if you weren't there at least 45 minutes in advance, you missed it and you had to stream it. So I think that's a really cool opportunity, and it kind of, I think, and this is something Matt and I talk about a lot, but I think it's getting us closer to this idea of the metaverse, if you want to get real heady, you know, with it. And I probably sound, you know, like dumb for saying that, but I think there's something interesting too, is it's not just Fortnite. You know, there's multiple games that have had these in-game events. There's a EDM concert that's going to be happening in Minecraft soon, and there's a really cool payment model that they're doing where you basically like buy a ticket to get in, so it's still able to support artists and musicians, you know, in the midst of this pandemic when so much of their revenue comes from touring, and you know, it's kind of the end of ownership for music, so we're all streaming and that's not really paying. But They're building this really cool interactive like music festival experience in Minecraft. And I think those are just two examples that, you know, off the top of my head, that I think are really interesting and something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think this work speaks to something that we could have never predicted would happen so quickly, but is definitely happening now due to the pandemic and other issues. So many people are having to stay home, and so many events in their life are being canceled that we're replicating in a digital world. So beyond just the events that, you know, Fortnite, Destiny 2, everyone else is putting on, we're also holding our own birthday parties and graduations in Animal Crossing. I mean, people are replacing their real world events that they can no longer go to and function in with this digital component. And like Jeremy said, it's really interesting because I think we were on the forefront of things like that happening, to where you weren't just going into a video game and playing. There was actually like a storyline behind it. It became like an event of its own, to where people were like, oh, that's really fun. I either want to watch or participate in that, because it's more than just being in the game. Now I'm a part of this external story that's happening within this game I also happen to love. And so it gives you like a big moment. It gives you like that big rush of endorphins that you get from like beating the biggest raid in WoW. Well, now you can get that in a different way, where it really puts like some backstory to this memory that you're going to have now. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. Like you said, the metaverse is what people are, you know, calling it when they're analyzing it. But I think we're going to see a lot more replacing reality with these digital worlds. I mean, that's just the situation right now. And so that's going to be really a huge focus for everyone moving forward.
Well, I'm looking for to see what you guys and what we in Geometry will be creating in the future. And again, thanks you so much for joining us today, for making the time to talk to us, and I really appreciate and thanks so much. And I hope to see you soon. And thanks you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks,
thank you so much for having
Thank
us.
you, Sarah.